conversation today with the author Sabin Iqbal. He's a very important personality in the literary climate of Kerala and India today because he's an author, he's a literary festival's curator, and a very senior journalist. So we are going to listen to Sabin Iqbal, who is going to talk to us about his amazing book and also how we can be like him, perhaps. Okay, so let me first give you an introduction to his work. So, as I was telling you, Savin is a very important personality in the literary environment of India. Personally, I know his sister very, very dearly. Shahin is my student and friend, and she's a very brilliant girl. And long before I met Sabin, I knew about him through Shahin. And then we have a very close friend who's also Sabin's cousin. So personally, I have been knowing him and we have been hearing about him as a brilliant journalist. And then one day he published this amazing book. And now he has published his second book and he's also doing something very, very important, which is the curation of literary festivals. He's a pioneer in that field. So these are his major contributions. Now I'll tell you a little more about it. The Cliffhangers was published by Aleph in 2019, set in his native Varkala, a place that is rife with political conflicts, communal tensions. We have, like Rahel and Esther, 4 kids who are growing up there. It's a coming-of-age novel, and they call themselves the Cliffhangers. They run up the cliffs. And like in so many classics of literature, these cliffs are a great symbol of the aspirations of humanity, of the climb that we are all climbing every day, every minute of our lives. And this story is deeply rooted in the real contemporary events that we see around us, because Sabin is also a very senior journalist. That element is very strong in this novel. You have a few rapes and murders and such communal issues, communal, racial, political issues, which in the middle of which our Ulli Musa, the narrator, is kind of crushed. He is several times caught by the police. He's not a perfect boy. He has his bit of mischief, but it is the UAPA that really, cracks down upon them all the time. This S.I. Devan, who is the symbol of the repressive state apparatus, he is one interesting figure in this novel, one character who is the other of our boys. It is a beautiful narrative of universal human experiences, as well as experiences that are very particular to Kerala and also Varkala, a community where all the men go to the Gulf, leaving their women here at home. Stories of teen loves and incest, incipient marriages, along with political developments, the representations of the Communist Party and its power over the Kerala people. This is an amazing satire and a very touching narrative of issues and events that all of us can relate with. I think this novel speaks for itself. You should read it, and I'm a great admirer and fan of this great writer here. I'm sure who has many more amazing novels and stories up his sleeve. We are waiting for it. The Cliffhangers was shortlisted for the Best First Book Award at Tata Lit Fest. Sabin also curates the Mathrubhumi International Festival, KA, which is very, very close to us. He is the brain behind it and also the arms. He has also curated Alliance Literary Festival in Bangalore. He was editorial director at Kochi Muziris Vinale. Sabin is also a senior editor, Tehelka, senior assistant editor, Business India, editor Sports Today, editor of many other periodicals. He has also written for Outlook, Open, and many important media companies, including BBC Scotland. It is a matter of great privilege and pride to introduce Sabin to this little but august gathering. Thank you, Sabin, for being with us. We greatly look forward to listening to you and also to the years and years of wonderful books to come. Thank you.
Morning. Thanks, Kalyani. And Sudhi for having me. They're like, I did my MA, rather say did, I didn't study at the Institute of English, so you came behind. After me, right? So yeah. And coming to this campus is quite nostalgic. Those days our campus was there. Even now it's there in Palai, right? So we used to come here for Jamburi, remember Jamburi and all that. So coming here is very, very nostalgic and close to my heart. And I live close by, so I can just 10 minutes drive. Thanks for the glowing words, and I don't know, it's, I mean, true, but you know, I'm going to narrate my story, my journey as a novelist. And this is, see, as Cliffhangers is going to be a movie soon. So this is the working title.
Congratulations, sir.
So I thought I just showed this script I did in Malayalam. So its work is on. This is my next novel. The other novel, Shamal, is set in the Middle East. It's a news story. Newsroom story. Okay. So I've got two more. It's breaking news. The next one is called Tales from Kabristan. Okay. And the other one, I'm writing two actually. I'm going for a 2-book deal. Wish me good luck. This is a calamitous afternoon, completely set in Trivandrum. It's in an afternoon where Oki hits the city, and 5 things happen, and it culminates in that afternoon. That's the story. And so I'm working on that. I thought I'd just show this how a writer. This is the way I write. I write in a Word document and keep going back and editing. So that's about, these are the breaking stories. And okay. First of all, thanks for having me. Honestly, I'm touched. I don't think I deserve this kind of stages and all that. I left mainstream journalism a few years ago because I found it very difficult to find a job in Trivandrum because I had to be in Trivandrum for my personal things. My wife was from there. So I came back to my own city, and I found it very difficult to get a job of that seniority and that pay. Even if I don't mind not having seniority, but I'm very particular about having that pay. So I didn't. So then I looked around, and I knew that I want to do something in literature. So and I was in touch with Dr. Shashi Tharoor, and we were discussing, and he brought Hay Festival here for 2 editions. And they did not come back, and we were working towards that. And then I said, let's do something on our own. So I worked on a brand called Books on the Beach for 6 months, went around, met a lot of people, met the tourism department, everyone supported, we do it in Kovalam, call it Books on the Beach, create a brand and all that. And then the change of government happened, and the new government came and they scrapped the project. So I lost my 6 months of work without pay working towards my dream. And I went back to Dr. Delhi and I said, see, I cannot work anymore without money. So he suggested to go and meet the friends to Madhurabhumi. I walked in and said, this is my project. He said, leave that aside, come and do our festival. So that's why I ended up curating Madhurabhumi Festival, the festival. Now we've got four editions. That's how it happened. That's how I ended up, creating literature festivals. And then I realized that I created my own niche as a curator of a literature festival. Normally we call a curator of an art exhibition or binale, but there is no concept of a curator for a literature festival. So I said I'm a curator of a literature festival. So I did four here, one in Alliance University. They called me back again. They're doing it in November. So, what is a curator? Curator. I happened to, I became instrumental to bring Gurna to Trivandrum, Abdul Razzaq Gurna.
Oh.
You know how many months I was after him, writing to him, writing to his publisher, Alexander, and then there's a lot of back and forth, and then convincing him why you should come to Kerala, why this geographical piece of land, this is important to your writing, and people here know your writing, this Indian Ocean literature and all that. Then finally one morning I got a mail from him, said, I'm coming.
Oh.
These kind of a magic moments, very, very close to a curator's heart. It's a lot of pain, there's a lot of heartbreak in bringing, you see a writer coming to a city, but there's a lot of work behind it. I'm not glorifying my work, this is my work, and we all do our work. But this is what a curator does. Then you decide on a theme, and okay, this is our theme. Now how do we fit in, sessions and writers, and today I got a wonderful news. I don't know how many of you know Chigosi Adiamo, the fisherman, the book. He just wrote me something, I'm coming. So for next Jan, Chigosi is going to be in Toronto. So these are the highlights. Okay. So I was doing my PG at the Institute of English. Got a good bunch of friends. They are friends for life. Even now, our batch is still, very well connected. And we were notorious for our. And even if you go to, if we meet Professor K. Radha and ask them the 91, 93 batch of Institute of English, they said, "Oh, that batch! How can we forget?" So the other day I met. Jayashree ma'am, I don't know how many, Jayashree ma'am said, I just happened to be in front of her and I said, ma'am, do you know me? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Ma'am looked at me, stared at me. I said, Sabin. He said, Sabin. I said, 91, 93 batch. Oh, that batch. How can you forget that batch? Having said that, we're a wonderful batch of students and we all bright students. So I did my PG then. I know what to do. I was not a bright student. I could never clear, a 50% mark to pay for the, whatever next qualifying exam. So I, as every Malayali, I left for the Gulf. And first I went to Delhi to become a big journalist. When I landed in Delhi, I sold my bike. I had some thousands of rupees with me. I went to Delhi, I landed there, and then I knew that an old friend of mine from the city, Rajesh Ravendran, he was there. I don't know how many of you know. He now is the editor of Tribune.
Sudeep's friend.
Yeah, Rajesh. So Rajesh was starving there. He was a trainee journalist at that time at the Week. Yeah. So we were together. We had a even now Rajesh says, you remember you landed with lots of money. We had a starving man. We had such a So to cut a long story short, before I finished my money, I came back to Kerala. I said I can't live in Delhi. Forget that dream. But then I actually had a chance to become a trainee journalist in Patna for the week. So I had this interview card, then I had this visa to go to the Gulf, because coming from Varkala, everyone, at least 2 people from one house will be in the Gulf. So getting a visa is not a problem. So I got the visa, I got this interview card to go to Lucknow or Patna, I don't know. So the choice is this. So now my father passed, my sisters married also, my mom, I have to look after her. If you go to Delhi or Lucknow, I could get 5,000 bucks those days. That's only enough for me to survive in Delhi. So I had to take a call between becoming a journalist, following my dreams, so follow my, look after my mom. So then, painfully, I just tore up the interview card and I decided to go to the Gulf. And there I landed, and I was working in a big construction company as a secretary to the finance manager. I used to cry every night. And I knew that this is not my life, I knew, deep within, I knew this is not I want to become. I used to drink quite a lot, get sloshed, come back to my room. I said, I want to kill myself. I want to go to the world of letters. That's where I belonged. Then I didn't know how. So there, like 12 to 3, there's a break. It's an industrial area. So there's a break, and people are like sleeping. So I used to go out during that break. It's an industrial area, Mosafa, industrial area of Abu Dhabi. So I used to go out and write, meet all these, laborers, I used to write about them and send it to Emirates News, which is a newspaper in the city. None of them got published, okay? But I kept writing to the editor. And one day I got a call. The office said, the editor of the Emirates News wants to meet you. I said, I couldn't believe it. He said, yeah. I picked up the call and said, it's a heavy accent, British accent. I said, yeah, hello, this is Peter here. I said, yes. Come and meet me in the evening, lad. I said, okay. So I met him, and finally I got into that as a junior sub-editor. That's where my journalist, again, my journey as a journalist began, mid-90s. From there, then again, I'm back to world of letters. I was happy, I was covering a lot of events, I was traveling. Then I wanted to write. I mean, just before that, God of Small Things came out in 92, right? 91, 92?
97.
97, sir.
97, so, yeah, perfect. So I was working in the newspaper, then this came out, all thrilled. And I don't know how many of you remember this. Let me just, you guys are okay?
Yeah.
I'm not training you anything, but, okay, one second. But then, this is May in Aymanam is a hot brooding month. The days are long and humid. The river shrinks and black crows gorge on bright mangoes and still dusk green trees. It goes on like this brilliant writing. I was so captivated with the magic of those lines and the literature, the quality, the use of words, if I can go on for ages. About this one paragraph. And I said, I do have a story to tell. I said, I do have a story to tell about Kerala. I started to write that day itself about the story, my story about Kerala. That is what you're going to see, Tales from Kabristan. Still not published. It took 97, now it's 23, right? That manuscript went on. I'm going to talk about the life of a novel, life of a writer. That novel went through multiple times of redrafts. I wrote it and I got rejected, then I rewrote it, and then again, I think it is at the threshold of getting published. And its name, working titles changed a few times. It was, last was Finally Father Died. That was the title, and I complete the manuscript of 1,30,000 words. And suddenly one fine morning I got this epiphanous moment inside. Its title is Tales from Kabristan. It's about people who are getting buried in different time, years and memories, and also it's called. I don't know. I still remember. I believe that my editors will go by that title, Tales from Kabristan. So that is. I started writing it in 1997 after reading the God of Small Things. So I know I want to tell you what is. It's all about tenacity. It's all about not giving up. Writing is a very painstakingly lonely affair. I'll come to this story behind all my novels, not all my, only 2 novels. But I remember the Cliffhangers. I remember I was in Doha, I was with Zahir, I was in a mall, I was waiting for him, I was sitting on a bench. Then suddenly this line came up. It said, that day the balloon went up far too high. So I immediately pulled out my notebook and I wrote that line. Second thing, if you want to become a writer, always carry a notebook or something to write down. A device, jot it down. That's one advice, not advice. It's a thing because you get these passing thoughts, but you may not catch it later. So always carry something that you can scribble down your thoughts, your ideas. So that day I wrote down that one line. That moment I knew that this novel is going to be about 4 boys. It is set on the cliff and it's about their identity, it's about their conflicts. And let me tell you that novel grew out of that one sentence. And the irony is that sentence is not in that novel. It got edited out. So, but the novel grew out of that sentence. So that is the last thing I wrote. That's the first book that got published. So you never know. When I was writing, coming to that, when I was writing the Cliffhangers, and I was going through a tough time in my personal life. I was crying within, but I knew that writing this novel is my way of breathing. So I used to sit in my study, look at there's nothing but a wall, and then my laptop, and I'm writing. As I write, I knew I started to hear voices. I started to see characters emerging in front of me. There is a character, Kalyani, I'm sure you know, so that Musa's mother, she's very, very angry. That anger is not justified in the novel. But I don't know how. She appeared just like that and demanded, write me. So that magic happens during the writing. But then I want to burst a myth here. There is no muse who's going to descend on your shoulders and write. It's going to inspire you. This is bloody hard work. Writing is bloody hard work. And there is an answer. My daughter is a cricket player. I dropped her from the practice and came here. And she took a break from school and she focused on the cricket. This is an uncertain journey. I don't know whether she will reach, but as a parent, as a father, I want to support her. Similarly, as a writer, I'm drawing parallel. When I'm writing, I don't know where this is going to be, whether this is published or this is good. I have no idea. Now I can say that I've got 2 books out. It's easier to approach publishers. I've broken that. There are more brilliant writers who are not published than those normal writers like me who are published. I know that reality. To breaking into that is very, very tough, and it takes a lot of effort. I almost, I had almost given up, this journey of getting published. But my cousin Anis Salim, who is a brilliant writer, he always used to tell me, don't give up. Tenacity is a virtue. So you have to be tenacious. Don't give up. So this book I was writing, and I knew I was going through a tough time in my personal life, and writing that moment when I sit down and I write. I don't know what I'm writing, but I am writing. Okay, so this is one aspect of writing. Don't wait for the muse to come down and tickle you, turn and go and write. There is no bloody thing as that. This is hard work. This is every day. This is my writing time. I'm going to write. You sit, create a space for you, a corner for you, and write. And there is a movie, Finding Forrester. You know, Sean Connery. It's about a brilliant writer who's an elusive writer, polyseminic writer, training a young black boy how to write. So one day he took him to takes him to his apartment, sets a typewriter for the boy and him, give him paper, said, okay, gives him paper, said, okay, now, write. The boy said, what? Write. He said, let me think, don't think when you write, please. He said, don't think when you write. Thinking comes later. First you write. So we tend to think too much about writing, and you write one sentence, go back, look at it and come back, your writing is gone. You just write, it is there within you. I'm telling you, when you start writing, the magic happens. This is my personal experience. I never planned this book. I had only one line. I started to write it, I had to finish it. Because as if my life depended on it. You know, it's purely subjective, personal. It could be different with another writer. You know, but this is what I've gone through. But one thing, I have a daily target of 2,000 words. I will write 2,000 words, come what may. That is the only routine even now I have. I will write. My kids ask, Papa, what are you writing? I said, I don't know what I'm writing, but I'm writing. Because I have to exercise that, get into that routine of writing, dabbling. Like, great painters, they dabble before they get into the real thing. Brush strokes, and they practice their, flow, hand flow, and all that. Keep writing. If you want to become, I don't know whether you can be great teachers or great writers, but if you want to be, writers, this is what, take it from me. Set aside one or 2 hours. That's up to you. But write. This is. I mean, otherwise, Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli, they don't have to practice every day. Just have to go and play the match. But they practice every day. Sweat it out on the net. Why? It's a practice. There are 2 schools of thought. One in Malayalam. I don't think the writers say that writing can be trained. But in the Western, we all know there are creative writing workshops. It helps. And I feel it helps. I never attended one, but then when I was working with a newspaper, I had a great editor called Vivekanandan. He's passed away. I used to take all my copies to him. He used to take it out. I still remember another senior copy editor in Abu Dhabi. I was covering a local match, and I wrote, it's something great short or great. He called me into his cabin and said, Sabin, sit. I said, yes, sir. Great. I said, yeah, great. What is great? Do you know the meaning of great? I said, sir, good. He said, good is not great. Greatness, you call a player, a great player, after so many years, he has to earn that, that's status of greatness. So when you use words, be careful. When you use words, be careful. They have real meaning. So I just want to show you this. The Oxford Dictionary writers and editors are just handy when I write. We have to refer, we have to know what really means. So words, handle them with care. Weigh them, see them. This is the right word. So that's getting into craft. That's later. But then I'm lost. I'm lost track. Okay? I had some method in the madness before coming here, but then it's become all madness after coming here. Method is gone. Anyway, so my journey as a writer. So then I got rejected many times, and I got fed up. I told Anis, I'm giving it up. I don't think I'll be published ever. Okay. Because then I said I'm happy to remain as an unpublished writer. I know I am a writer, but I'm not sure that I would ever be published. Then, and he said, look, he picked up some examples from somewhere. He says that this guy got published at the age of 80, so you got still 40 more years to go, 45 more years to go. I said, okay, fine. Then I met David who is the most important person in the Indian publishing industry. And that's good thing about curating festival, you get to meet them, you become friends with them and all that. So I was sitting down and having coffee with David. I said, David, I have a manuscript. Would you please take a look at it? He looked at me and said, because you can't reach that. In a normal way, you can't reach David or editor of a publishing house. You can only go through the, the junior most people. They will look at it, they will, mostly throw it in the slush pile. But here, because of my positional advantage, and I asked him, he said, send to me, but I will pick only if it is good. Forget about friendship. I said, that's not. You just run through it. So that's why I got the break with Cliffhangers. He picked the Cliffhangers because he liked the storyline, he liked the writing and all that. So that is how I got published with the Cliffhangers. And this book, Shamal Days, is set in the Middle East. I've been writing this for some time. I have this habit of writing multiple manuscripts. This is completely set in the Middle East with the background of Israel-Palestine conflict. It's about a group of journalists in a newsroom working their alienation, their aspiration, journalists from around the world. So once that is done, the Cliffhangers won the best book, didn't win, okay? It was shortlisted. And recently I met the jury in Bangalore. I won't take the name. He saw me and said, he gave me a hug. And I said, by the way, that's my award. He said, Sabin, I should have given you the award. In my heart, you won the best book award, but there are pressures from some various sides. I said, this is enough for me. This is my award. So after that, then I pitched this to Harper, and Harper picked this, and this is how Shamal Days happened. And now I'm doing these two books simultaneously. I hope soon it will be out as a two-book. I'm pressing for a two-book deal out of. The good thing is about I don't know whether Abraham Burgess. Have you heard of Abraham? Abraham Burgess' new book, The Covenant of Water, is coming out. It's come out, I think. It's set in Kerala. It takes the story of Syrian family, Syrian Christian family, 3 generations. So the Kerala in international fiction is back. So I'm pushing that context to get my books out. Anyway, so that's my journey briefly. And journalism, I after say 10, 12 years in the UAE doing journalism, launching magazines, I had my own magazine, travel almost around the world, covering sports events. Then my wife, I met my wife in the newsroom. We got married there, and she suffered a stroke, so we had to come back. In 2008, we came back to Trivandrum. I joined the heck, I joined Outlook, I joined Business India. Then I joined Kochimas Spinale as editorial director. This is my journalistic journey. Then I took a break, as I told you. Then got into curation. So this is my brief professional journey. Now, I would also like to talk about a little bit about how and what we write. Is that okay? A bit. One second. Okay. And I believe we all have at least one story within us. We all have a story, at least one story. If you are a storyteller, you have many stories. At least you have your own story to tell. Okay? I completely believe in that. So, how do we write? How do you go about writing your own story at least? The first thing is, do you have the urge? Do you want to write it out? That's the first sign of writing. You will be restless unless I write. If you have that, that's the first sign, good sign. How do you know that you have that in you as a writer? I knew because I was not good enough for science or maths or anything. I knew because my family background is that my grandfather owned a newspaper called Sabin, and I come from that background where in dinner table, my sister and I heard only words like Russell, Kessler, Burke. My father and my uncles are discussing all those names, and so this is what conditioned us. In my father's library, I could only the first book I read was Hesse Siddhanta, and I did not understand anything at the age of 12 or 13. I picked up Siddhanta, started to read. In a way that stopped my reading because I never read any Blyton or, I didn't read for stories. I read these names, Kessler, Stum of the Earth. I saw my father's book, I started reading them and I stopped my reading, It slowed down my reading. So this is the background. So I knew that I wanted to write. And I'm a village boy. I come from Arkala, studied in all my life in Malayalam medium. But I used to write, small, bits in English, what you call poetry. But I never had the courage to write a line of prose in English. I never had that. I could never speak to anyone in English. I was a typical village boy from Arkala. When I was doing my BA at Fatima College in Kollam, there's a beautiful girls from Tandasheri, all posh, push and all English. I wanted to talk to them, but I had never had the courage to speak to them. I was this association secretary of English department. I ran away because I had to speak in English on the association day. This was me. If I could address a gathering of international writers, I think it's magic. I don't know what happened at that transformation, but then my colleagues were Welsh, British, Irish. I never understood a word they spoke. All this Welsh accent and all that. Sabin, sorry, I said, I wanted to run away from here. Then slowly I used to go on with them to the pub and all that. There was Africans, there were Russians and Filipinos, and then that milieu, that people changed my attitude, opened the window for me as a the only thing I said that I never used to go out with Malus in that city. No Kerala Samaj, nothing. Because I wanted to learn, pick up this language and speak to them the way they spoke. Because that's what I wanted. Because I want to survive in that newsroom. I just want to at least understand what my colleagues were speaking. That was my situation. So that changed me, that opened my eyes. I started to look around. Working in a newsroom in the Middle East, we started to learn about global politics, geopolitics, because every day we have to do a page. It could be Africa today, tomorrow it could be Asia, or the Middle East, or the Americas. So we have to follow all these stories. Okay, when I come back here, when the international news is just one page and it's a single column, and my journalist friends here are still doing the local politics and care money and all that. I feel nothing. I feel it's good that I ran away from here, because that opened my. Then I wanted to attend a Hay Festival. First time I saw that in a Time Literary Supplement in the office, I saw Hay Festival. I said, wow, I want to go to Hay Festival. This was a festival. That was my bucket, one of the things in my bucket list, and I managed to go there. That's my high point. I went to bring them to Doha. So those days, I wanted to bring Hay Festival Doha. So went to Hay Festival, met all of those guys, but they didn't work out because they were charging. So anyway, going to festivals is also part of when I see all those publishers, all those, I get this kind of excitement, like Shobana. So I used to get, writer, why? I would just want to be with them and all that. So that urge, I was talking about that urge. So you have to identify, if you want to be a writer, do you have that urge? That's one. Second is, what is a notebook? Where is that notebook? It's, carrying notebook. As journalists, we always used to carry something to scribble on. But if you want to be a writer, I said, you can have your iPad, something to write down, the passing thoughts, because you never know, those passing thoughts can be developed into a book or an essay, or something creative. Now, why do we write stories? Why do we want stories? First of all, why do we want? Can someone say? Anyone? Why do we want to read stories? Why do we want stories in a society? We are all, I presume we all read literature. We study literature. I'm quite passionate about literature. I wish, I tell my kids, I wish I could turn the clock back and go back to the Institute of English again. I want to do my MA again. I seriously discussed with Lal sir. He discussed Sabin. Don't think about it now. No, but then honestly, why do we study or read literature? What can in the time now we talk about Chat GPT and all that. So why literature? Why stories?
To know ourselves better?
Yeah, in a way. But I have an answer. Stories heal our wounds. Stories heal our wounds. We all carry many wounds within. As a society, as individuals, stories have this therapeutic power to heal the wounds we carry ourselves. When I am healed of my wounds, I contribute to a much healthier society. As a society, our society has its own wounds. When we read about stories, what happened in other places, when you read about the suffering in some other society, suffering in, we all say Africa, but then one day I wrote about, in one of my articles, I wrote the dark continent. Oh my God, in the evening, a Sudanese friend of mine took me to, Sabin, how could you write? It's a dark continent. You think we're all dark people? I said, my friend, my brother, sorry, I will never write it's a dark continent. So these little things we always compare. So in Africa, I was listening to one reel the other day, this guy, stand-up comedian, say that, but my mom used to say that finish everything on the plate because the people are starving in Africa. So I finish everything on the plate. Then every day he used to say, people in Africa are starving, so I used to finish my plate. Now I become like this. Then if I meet an African, I said, I contribute to your country. So it's all happened. So these are stories. So stories heal wounds that we carry ourselves. Okay, so that's why we write fiction. That's why I'm not an academic. You're all academic people. You write academic papers, but fiction, stories, poems, we need all of them for a healthy, healed society. If we are not healed, the society, the community we live is not healed. Now, my next point is the myth of the muse. I'm telling you, there is no muse. You can wait all night to look at the moon and the moonlight and everything, and you can see flowers blooming. You can wait. Sometimes it happens, okay? Sometimes for a poet. I was reading one of my favorites poet is Jane Kenyon, American poet, and she came to Institute of English and we were doing a course, and that's how I got into her. She became a friend, poet Donna Hall. I used to write to them and all that, and she said sometimes a poem comes to you and waits and says, write me. You just have to type it. No, that's it. It happens. I'm not ruling it. But then, generally we say, I want inspiration to write. Sorry, there is no inspiration. You just have to sit down and write. That's it. So, myth, I'm bursting the myth of the muse. The other point is research and homework. Do we need research and homework when we write fiction? Fiction is fiction, right? Kalyani was talking about the Cliffhangers. It's actually a documentation of a journalist. And everything that, the incident, there's a man was killed, there's a rape, whatever happened in that, actually were back of my mind as a journalist. It happens. As a writer, I respond to my realities. Okay, I respond. There are apolitical writers. They just write fictional, imaginative stories. That's fine. There are writers who respond. There are artists who respond what's happening. Once I asked Simon Armitage, the poet, Simon, I met him, I asked Simon, who is a poet? He said, because when we were doing PG, that's the time his first collection, Zoom, came out. It's a very thin, those days we used to have the British Library. What a blessing that was, So I used to pick up all these modern British poets from the collection there. I was reading it. Then I told him, see, I read Zoom at the British. He was so happy. Then I asked him, who was a poet? He is now the poet laureate, right? So he said, poet is someone, there's a bird in the bough, you can't see it. It sits within, invisible in the bough and said, this is not right, this is not right. He calls out to the society, saying, this is not right, what you're doing is not right. See, that is a poet. Can't be seen, weak, not powerful. Keep responding, very sensitive to what's happening around. That is what we say as writers, creative writers, we respond to what's happening around us. Okay, and now I had the fortune to spend some time with Amitabh Ghosh when he came for the festival here. That's also cool. I managed to pull. Sorry for bragging. He never goes to any festivals. So that's a lot of pausing and all that. Happened to come, and we were having dinner together. And he lifted up. My great memory is at straight Shamal days. So he is now writing something called climate fiction. As literature teachers, and you should know, climate fiction is the latest branch of literature. How we can save the earth through our writing. So that is also, in my way, I say, responding to our realities. So climate writing is a response of a writer to the reality that we live in. So that's so. Sorry, I used that to brag about my momentary glory with Amitabh Ghosh. But he's a pioneer, global pioneer in climate fiction, climate poetry. There's also non-fiction on climate literature, in that bracket. So that is one, that is creative writers can respond. As writers, you can respond to what is happening. If there is a calamity in our society, or flood, for example, 2018 is a movie, is a response of a filmmaker to what happened to Kerala. So that's one. Am I making sense? Or? Yeah. You tell me, you have all the freedom to shut me up.
We are loving it.
And once if you think you have an urge, you said, okay, where do we find stories? Where do we find stories?
Everywhere.
The world is.
Can we pluck a story out of thin air? So where is it? What will be your source to find a story?
Something which we encountered.
That's memory or experience. You say memory or experience. That's one. Right?
People around us.
People around us. See, I prefer watching people to reading books. Honestly, I'm not an avid reader, but I have a selective reading. But I watch people. I watch people, go sit with them, talk to them when I travel taxi or tea shop, and that's it. Anyway, people. Okay? This is just an exercise. That's all people and memory experience.
Dreams.
The media?
Media. Yes, of course. Keep a tab on media. You get beautiful stories, little snippets. You can develop that into a good story. And albums. You go back here. Albums. You recreate those days. You relive those days.
Imagination.
Imagination, of course. You create something out of it because you imagine. But what influences the imagination? That's another thing. Could be experience. I don't know. I have no answer unless we're just discussing. So, I mean, I'm thinking, if I imagine, where do my imagination come from? Based on what?
Something already we would have experienced.
Sorry.
Something we would have already
Yeah, something
experienced.
you would have understood, experience somewhere, right?
Traumas.
Traumas, yeah.
Emotions.
If we go back to our old college days, greeting cards, when we used to have greeting cards, Christmas and all that, you know. We go back, take it out, read them. You can get a story out of it, you know.
In YouTube, your fan Shabir is saying from our observation.
Oh, okay.
He has been appreciating your talk and responding to your, your talk about, the aspects of writing. He has been responding to.
Thank you. Okay, now, stories, it's up to you. As Sudeep said, people in media, but for that we have to read the newspaper. I mean, I'm having a tough time making my kids read newspaper, they just don't read. I don't know why, you know. I have into everything, you know, start every day, and at the end of the day we keep it that is, you know. So that, I mean, I don't know. They said we get all the information, you know, from other platforms. Maybe, but to get a story, I mean, to get the art of writing, you have to read. Anyway, that's a different generation, you know. Yeah. Then you find a story, okay, you get a thread. Then get a thread. For example, okay, imagine that, story, news. What do you do with that? What do you do with that?
We know.
I mean, if you take a story, you read a story, that is a thread, that is a story, but what is that? I mean, what is that? Some words? Is that a structure?
We make some jottings now, sir.
Okay.
Something.
Yes.
Some kind of hints.
Okay. Now you got the jottings ready, you got everything ready. Now you're sitting down to write. What do you do? Who's writing? Who's telling the story?
The speaker.
Yeah. So is it first person? Is it third person?
Okay.
What is the voice? If you don't listen, a voice in your writing, that is flat. This is what I want to come to. We should hear a voice when you read something. Either the narrator, it could be first person. Now the latest trend in literature is autofiction. It's called autofiction. With Marquez, by the way, I happened to bring Marquez's grandson to Toronto. As a coup, you know. Yeah, he never expected that he would be having such a huge, not he, his grandfather, but a huge fan following in a small, tiny state like Kerala. He was celebrated in Toronto during the festival. Anyway, Marquez.
Yesterday, another speaker was saying the most popular Kerala writer is Marquez.
Yeah. I told him this. When in my correspondence to him, I wrote all this. That's why you should come to Kerala and all that, you know. Anyway, so Marquez is just the opposite of autofiction. Autofiction is now like the what's his name? I'm sorry. Anyway, I get the name later. Who's a French Nobel winner? Arnaud writes autofiction. Okay? Even though she doesn't say that she writes autofiction, it's mostly autofiction. Kind of star, right? The Dutch writer. He celebrates his seasons and writes about his life, what's happening around him. It's called autofiction, which is autofiction. But Mark is just opposite. He's all imagination. You know, the magic realism. We create that magic realism. I remember Rushdie once talking about Marquez. He says, when we hear magic realism, we only hear the word magic, but it is rooted on the other word, realism. Whatever Marquez had written is about the reality around him, but he created a magic around it. I think if you go to the villages of Kerala, we can see a lot of magic realistic elements in our lives. If we can try to write. I mean, in that speech, Rushdie tells us that a taxi, and he was in, I think in Colombia or somewhere, he was taking, the cabbie was taking around the place, trying, this is Gabo's house. By the way, in here, we all have great stories. Gabo just happened to be a good taxist. That's it. So there are stories around us. There are magic elements around us. What I'm trying to say is that when you sit down to write, how do you decide this? Whose voice is this? My voice as the narrator, the writer is the narrator, or the you, the second person, the third person? That voice should be there. Whatever that voice you pick. When I read your writing, when you read your story, if there is no voice, you lost me as a reader. Right? This is the first thing is that what is a voice? There's no voice. Then it's dead. It's dead writing. Okay? Voice brings life. Once you fix the voice, what is the tone? So what is the difference between voice and tone?
Voice is the vantage point. Tone is the mood.
The mood. What kind of story are you writing? Is it a sad story or is it a happy story? Or it's all negative story? That is tone. So when you write, you can, the voice, the tone, yeah. Now, these are not in order, but these are the random points that is that. For a novel, we all say we should have a plot. You are all academic about plot, you deconstruct plot and all that. Sorry, but as like layman writers, there should be a plot, there should be structure. So we should think about all that, right? As writers, what am I writing? Am I writing a novel or a short story, or I'm writing non-fiction? But there should be some method, some structure to it, right? So when I joined, I know people are listening to this, but then when I joined the Mr. Binale as the editorial director, I got a call one day from Riaz Komo. He said, is that Sabin? I said, yes. Can you come to Cochin tomorrow? I said, for what? No, we need an editorial director. We'd like to meet you. So I went to Cochin, I met Riaz, and I was appointed as the editorial director of Cochin Muslim Binale. And let me tell you, I didn't know anything about art. I said, art writing, it's all heavy stuff. I'm a journalist. Journalist means we know that we cut the crap, We ask questions to the text copy. If it's not clear, we cut it out. This is what, if you're in doubt, cut it out. That's what the copy does for you. Or cut from, if it's the agency copy, cut from bottom, for the space. So these are the practices we do. Okay, we just managers. So for us, like writing about, I should have brought that huge catalog I edited. That's his work. We have to write 1,000 words on this in the catalog. So I'm trying. This is all, it's all in good spirit. Okay, I'm not criticizing art writers or anyone.
Sabin, will you give me 2 minutes?
Yeah.
His first novel, The Cliffhangers, is very famous, published by Aleph. And the second novel, Samal Days, has been published by HarperCollins. He has been talking to us about his journey as a writer and journalist, and also, very importantly, as a curator of literary festivals. Thank you, Sabin Iqbal. I'm stopping the live streaming now. Thank you, everybody.